There
Hey, can
he
you hear me
sort of
now,
is.
Kevin?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, I can see you, and I
All right,
really, really,
perfect.
really appreciate you taking the time because I was thinking about this. I
Hmm.
saw Miracle of 86 at Brownies like once or twice, early 2000s. That means listening to your music for like 20-ish years. That's
That's a
weird.
long time. I almost feel like I owe you an apology for some reason. That's a long time.
I was trying to think if it was you guys opening for Ultimate Fake Book or if it was
That happened. That totally happened. It's so funny. I was talking to somebody. Is this okay lighting wise and stuff? It's good.
you
Okay.
look dashing as always,
Well,
Kevin.
come on. That's you're very generous. I um I was talking about brownies and that period of time this morning with a German person, a podcast guy, and that definitely happened. Miracle opened for Rainer Maria there.
Yes.
Miracle opened for Ultimate Fake Book there. I opened for Cursive there. Um, and Miracle also played with Sorry About Dresden, another Saddle Creek band that was like I think it was like Connor's older brother, Matt Oberst. And anyway, Miracle played a lot at Brownies. Those are the ones that Ultimate Fake Book thing for sure was one of them.
Wow. The things that stay in your mind.
I mean,
Uh,
there's a lot of that stuff up there, but yeah.
what I had for dinner 2 days ago, no idea, but I
No,
saw you play
no.
20 years ago.
Yeah, hopefully the impression that was made was yeah, well, we're talking now, so it had to have been at least semi-decent. Yeah.
Very, very positive, just like that new album, Nothing's Real, So Nothing's Wrong,
Mm,
which follows just a couple of months after you put out the live album, Matter of Time, too.
mm.
So, a lot of artists kind of lost that productivity and drive in the midst of the pandemic. You did not. You stayed pretty busy, it looks like.
It's so funny because I accept your assessment, but I also feel like I don't reckon with the potential fact of my what's it called, like prolific nature, profligate, whatever the word would be. I don't wrestle with it or think about it until someone like holds up a mirror, because in my head, uh, I don't know how to, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like we're just like doing stuff, and
Mhm.
all of this stuff happens in sort of different directions at different times. And so I mean, I feel like part of me actually feels like, I mean, you're a person, I bet you deal with your own versions of this. We all do. Part of me feels like, I'm like, am I doing enough? Should I be doing more? And when faced with the Wikipedia page, I'm like, no, I guess that there's been a lot. But yeah, no, it's also funny because as you do stuff, but when it comes out and how isn't always representative of when it was done. Like that live recording happened one weekend 13 months ago, upstate New York somewhere, and
Mhm.
but the record was getting recorded like a brick at a time for 2 years, so sort of all happening at the same time, but comes out when it comes out.
The worst example of that is for actors, writers,
Oh, totally.
producers, where you don't know about all these secret holding deals and developmental deals. I guess the comparable nature of that would be if you were co-writing and doing guest appearances on people's
Right.
albums, that maybe those didn't come out or maybe those just didn't get logged.
100%. And it's funny that the thing you just brought up, it's so funny. I was super randomly, I can't believe I'm about to say this out loud. I was super randomly thinking the other day about how after Titanic,
Hmm.
the next I remember going as a college student to the Lincoln Square multiplex in Manhattan. I was a student at Fordham and over there, and seeing Hideous Kinky, which was some little budget overseas movie with Kate Winslet, and thinking like when she agreed to be in that movie,
Yeah, yeah.
those people had no idea how, like, I bet that movie probably did like 200% of what its box office would have been. I'm sure it was modest, but I bet just because like the person from Titanic was in it, and at that moment Titanic was everywhere. So I'm glad I got to talk about Hideous Kinky and Kate Winslet in this format. That's,
So growing up in New York, did you grow up in Staten Island?
I kind of split the difference. I grew up in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, till I was 11. I moved to Staten Island for junior high school and high school.
Hmm.
I lived in Manhattan for college, and I've been back in Brooklyn, various parts of Brooklyn since 2000. Yeah, 20, Jesus Christ, 22 years. Yeah.
Well, you just dispelled the myth of, yeah, Kevin, that Long Island based musician, because of who you were friends with, or who
Well, I
you
think if
grew up
you're
with.
yeah, I think that's there's an associative thing there. It's
Yeah.
like if your friends are in bands that are like 200 times more commercially successful than you are, it tends to be like also with I think because the moment when I started playing places like Brownies or the Wetlands or Mercury Lounge or all those places, it was such a weird, it was like right before the Strokes, the AAS,
Yeah.
the LCD thing, the Rapture, TV on the radio, all of that. It was like right before that,
Can't
90s.
forget Interpol,
Yeah,
Stella Star. There was like
yes.
four more
Stella
that went
Star
to
we
the
played
majors.
shows with.
Long Wave.
Yes. Yeah, and there was a band called the Realistics that was
Yes.
like on the way to being, I mean, the Strokes used to open for the Realistics, and
Yeah.
those were all Staten Island dudes, two of which did time in the goddamn band at some point with me. But I mean, at that moment, we didn't really, Miracle was a little bit indie rock, a little bit emo, a little bit Nirvana, a little bit whatever, but we
Yeah.
sort of didn't fit anywhere exactly. So we'd play on Long Island in like a backyard with like Brand New and a band called Excite Bike from Rhode Island, or like a bowling alley with what became Taking Back Sunday, whatever band they were in before that. And then we play with some of the bands you just mentioned. And then I'd also play like weird random shows with like singer-songwriter people, which is a trend that continued throughout my career in lots of directions, was a kind of schizophrenic
Yeah.
experience to which, but I think at that moment it was just like once that Long Island stuff got big and I wasn't like looped in, I wasn't like people were seeing me hanging out with the Strokes. So you go with what you see. But
Well, that's actually an interesting thing about your career, because it sounds like a singer-songwriter when you think about the composition, the lyrics, and all that. But then the production, you never sounded like a singer-songwriter.
that's good.
The way that, say, Billy Idol is a technically, forgetting the fact that Steve Stevens exists,
Yes.
Billy Idol is a singer-songwriter by name,
Yes.
but it's a band. So you always sounded like a band.
And I always welcome a Billy Idol comparison.
Well, Billy Idol has a co-write on that last Strokes album because the chorus lifted
Oh,
Rebel
yes.
Yell. So it
I
always,
liked that Strokes record, and I liked that Rebel Yell lift, and I'm glad that Billy's getting compensated. He should. No, I think for me, you can't see over the computer. I'm looking at a friend of mine who's a cartoonist or an illustrator, did a little sticker of Elliott Smith that I have up on my light fixture. Like I think singer-songwriter, like any genre word, tends to be a little like limiting, or can be like a dirty word. And when I think of it, my associations are sort of like someone sort of, it's like milk toast expressions of kind of like a kind of like a toothless emotionalism, like sort of cheap poetry, and it would be like on in a coffee shop somewhere. Now, there's plenty of people that would say that's what I make. So fair. But what I'm saying is well, thank you. But for me, the singer songwriters I love are people who have sort of like not been that easily reduced. And, Elliot, for example, I don't know, to me, that music sounds like Elliott Smith. You could say it's a singer songwriter because it's a man with a guitar or a piano, but what he did with that, even when it was just him with a guitar, it was so different to me than watching another person with just a guitar. It was something about, maybe that's also about facility or something like ability, but yeah, I never kind of wanted it to just be like, I wanted it to be my name because I wasn't creative enough to come up with a Cat Power or a, Pedro the Lion or Bright Eyes or whatever. I just was like, and also, worked for people, Elliott Smith's, well, that wasn't his real name, but it was close enough. It's part of his name. I thought it's okay to call it your name. I also had a band.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, that'll differentiate it from the band. It'll be less confusing. But I also just always kind of felt like then it can be whatever I want it to be, however I dress it up, and the
Mhm.
songs are still in the middle of it, and I can get up and play those songs alone, or I can translate them into like five different, I can be a bunch of different bands, you know. And I think the band on Nothing's Real So Nothing's Wrong sounds pretty different from the band on like Bubblegum or something like that. They're not. So I kind of think even if it's confusing from a marketing perspective, I get to like be all the different bands I want to be all the time, which is kind of cool.
You are your own cottage industry,
Yeah.
your own niche, which works. It's proven the test of time on that end, but nothing's real, so nothing's wrong. Did you know outright that Triple Crown was going to put it out? Was that the plan all along?
Yeah, the plan, God, when did that get? So I think that was cemented by spring of 2020. Actually, perhaps slightly before pandemic. I'll try to do this like condensed, as you may have already been able to tell. It's not exactly my strong suit, but
No. I think being interesting and having stories is your strong suit.
well, that's very generous. I can direct you to some intimate people in my life, past and present, that might be like, that's one way to say it. I will very quickly say this. I have a child. I'm not married to her mom. We're very close, and we
Sure.
still see each other basically every day. And I was over there recently, and I was telling her, we've known each other a very long time, 25 years. I was telling her a story about something and just didn't resolve. It just kind of went on and petered out. And she and she looked at me and went, "That's just the kind of story I've missed hearing so much." So I'll tell her that you think it's being interesting and having stories.
It
Um,
sounds like the parallel to anytime I start talking about Van Halen, I see my wife's
yeah,
eyes glaze over a little bit.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's fair. So anyway, I started thinking about this record in like March of 2018. And I spent about 10 months thinking about it, kind of trying to be like, I don't think I want to play guitar. I think I want to just, and then kind of like sometimes literally staring at the guitar, being like, I don't know about you. And then uh, realizing that was sort of like trying to like enter into a boxing match with my dominant hand tied behind my back or something. Like, I'm a guitar player. So then it was like, well, what do we want to do with it? And the song started coming January of 2019. And I did like some demos, acoustic demos. And I think we reached out to like, I didn't know if Fred was going to be interested or available at Triple Crown. So
Fred Feldman at Triple Crown.
yeah, who has been well, a career long facilitator of mine, champion, friend,
Yeah.
mentor, colleague, but also just kind of like he's dipped in and out. The roles change, but he's been involved with like 7 records of mine between myself and Bad Books.
Mhm.
So we initially, we did the thing. I sent it, like, I have cordial relationships with like Mac at Merge, or like, I could send an email to Rob at Saddle Creek. I did the stuff. So
Right.
we tried. I sent it to the people who put Bad Book's last record out, Loma Vista. And everybody was nice, but it wasn't like, nobody seemed to be set on fire. And then Fred kind of was like, hey, if you want to do it here. And I was like, oh, if that's an option,
Mhm.
like, forget all that. Because I think it's really valuable to have somebody, first of all, Triple Crown's great, and they know what they're
Yeah.
doing, and they do it exceptionally well. And they are like me, or me like them, lifers who have been able to like somehow stick around through lots of change around them
Yeah.
to still be here doing what they do. And we hadn't made a record together under my name in 15, 16 years, 2003 and 5. So it just also felt circular. And I love the opportunity to work with somebody who actually gets it, knows it, is impassioned about it. But yeah, I think that got signed in early 2020. And then we had like a plan to like go into a studio in April 2020, record for 2 weeks, go out and mix it in California. And then, as we have all lived, those plans got, but for this record, I actually think it ended up being kind of an amazing, I mean, if you didn't, in context, we're talking about a global pandemic that has disrupted the fabric of society, but in context, for the record,
Yeah.
it was not the worst thing in the world, because we got to really, like, we knew we wanted to make something kind of more like widescreen, horizontal, cinematic,
Sure.
what's it called? Atmospheric, gently screwed up pop songs that got a little crooked. And I think the time, being afforded 2 years to really like pick apart everything and put it back together, I think really benefited the songs. But yeah, no, I knew Triple Crown, and to Fred's infinite credit, then I'll shut up. It was a year before he was like, can I hear something? So Bracco and I, we got to work on it from like March 2020 to February 2021. And when he asked, we were kind of like, what do you mean you want to hear something? Like, we were sort of like, no one's going to hear this. Like, we're in the bunker.
Intrusive A&R guy. He's looking for a single, isn't he?
He literally was like, do you think I could hear anything? And we were like, oh, like, a year into it. But so that, he and they have been nothing but, they're the best.
Cool. Well, the last question I have for you before I send you on your way, rather than asking you more questions about Brownies or Van Halen or whatever, is, do you have a TV recommendation you could pass along to someone who needs a new show to start?
Oh, I'm the worst. Okay, look, all right, the things I've been watching, I started watching with my partner, who is in like film and TV and theater world, to Call My Agent, this French show that's on Netflix. It's fun. It's good. It's a little close to home. Sometimes I'm a little bit like, it feels like I'm like watching things that she tells me about serialized on Netflix. And I was like, I don't know if this is too much immersion for me, but that show's cool. Righteous Gemstones, I got a kick out of. I think that shows a lot of things, actually. It's like smarter than people give it credit for, too.
Former Satanists and all.
Yeah.
What a great character that is.
Dude, it's out of control. And the performances are just nuts. But most of what I've watched in the last 6 months I did a whole thing like all of us did early in the pandemic, where I did like all of Better Call Saul. I rewatched The Sopranos. I watched like The Outsider on HBO. I watched Watchmen. I watched, there was a whole thing, bunch of movies, Nurse Jackie in its totality. I don't know. Then I was just like, I can't do this. And it became a lot more like things like The Great British Bake Off, which I've now watched every episode that's available. But that became the narcotic at night. So if you're looking to fall asleep and you don't want to be like thinking about the imperiled everything around you, The Great British Bake Off is your friend. I'll tell people that.
Night. Did you write down that song title? Because that might be something right there.
I think I've been writing a version of that song for 22 years, but yeah, I'll make sure I don't lose it. The alliteration is the bane of my existence, but there you go.
Not Bane, the hardcore band that you were probably on a billing with online.
I bet there was some time where Miracle of '86 or Delusion was first of 80 on some show that Bane played in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania or something. But yeah.
Well, thank you for the many years of great music, and
thank you.
You're still doing it at such a high level. So
that's very nice.
Up that damn greatness, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time. It was good to talk to you.
My pleasure. Have a great rest of the day. Take care.
See you, homie. Bye.
Paltrocast.